Tonight, we start with the fear over 5G. If you didn't know that was a thing, it is. It's a new technology that will make your cell phone and Wi-Fi 100 times faster than current 4G technology. But there are some of those who have concerns about it because of the cell towers required and what unknown impact it will have on our health. Opponents say 5G generates radio frequency radiation that can damage your DNA and lead to cancer. And that's just one of the concerns. Even in the 3rd Ward here in Houston, residents have expressed concerns about the cell towers that could be erected within 35 feet of their homes. The city's limit on towers has been 150 feet to residential areas. Joining us here to discuss this more is journalist and documentary filmmaker Derrick Broze and 3rd Ward resident Mark Newsom, both strongly opposed to 4G towers in Houston. Mark, let's start with you. Since you live in the 3rd Ward area, when you heard and the sign was erected indicating that there would be cell phone towers, 5G in your area, why were you so concerned?
The first thing that pops in my mind is, radiation. How does that affect us, 10, 20, 30 years down the road? Because right now, if you have a tower, 50 feet from a residential home, there's no telling what's going to happen down the road. And understanding like a big corporation is going to be mostly concerned with profits and making money and that sort of thing. We're concerned about our health. So that concerns me.
Is it more of a precautionary measure, or is it supported by scientific fact and studies?
Well, the thing is, I don't know if there's any scientific studies on 30 years of research on how 5G affects someone.
Like asbestos in paint.
Exactly. That was the first thing that popped in my mind. So my thing is like, we need to be asking those type of questions. How will that affect our health?
All right. Derrick, let's bring you into this conversation. You and I started this conversation more than a year ago, and you've been going to Houston City Hall, ringing the alarm, but no one has listened so far. We have had a major launch of 5G already here in the city of Houston. For those who are not familiar with the tower and the delivery system, we think of the old cell phone towers that are towering over communities, but the 5G towers will be different.
Yeah, they're what are known as small cells, and they can be the size of a backpack to the size of a refrigerator. What we've seen more in Houston is instead of building a brand new tower where you're going to notice it, they're just adding, additional antennas on top of existing telephone poles, light poles, things like that. And the 5G towers can be a cylinder. Again, it can be like a square backpack. To your question, Dan, there are actually scientific studies that, I've talked with Dr. Martin Paul of Washington State University, as well as other researchers who have gathered the evidence showing not just 5G.
How could they have the evidence this soon, though, because 5G is a new technology? They may be referring
5G.
To radio frequency.
Sure, exactly.
There.
And that's the bigger picture here, I think, that people need to understand is that we're already using cell phones and smartphones. You probably got one in your pocket right now. And the evidence that's coming out, including last year, a 10-year, $35 million study from the federal government, showed that 2G and 3G led to cancer, tumors specifically, in rats that they studied. And that is at levels that we're going to see with 5G. Because the thing about 5G, for it to be 100 times faster, like you talk about, we have to have towers every 200 to 500 feet at a rate we've never seen before. The FCC estimates up to 800,000 new towers around the country, including, like he's saying, right next to residential areas. And over in Tanglewood, there's ones next to elementary schools that are being built. So we already have evidence that the existing technology is causing harm to our bodies, whether people will make the connection or not. And we're moving into an area where it's going to be everywhere and what people are calling an electro-smog, where we're going to be kind of radiated whether you like it or not. You can choose not to have Wi-Fi at home, for example, or not use a smartphone. But if 5G is everywhere, you can't really, get away from it.
Now, Mark, we know that there are some telecommunications companies that are seeking variances from the city of Houston, City Hall, asking, we originally have to have our towers 150 feet away from residential areas. We want them 35 feet. What can you do as a citizen to intervene in something like that?
I think those are, like I said, we need to take it upon ourselves to educate ourselves about how the potential harms that could happen to us. Also, we need to, ask City Hall, like, is this absolutely necessary to be in our area?
One of the things I talked to a city councilman today, and he said he was not absolutely convinced. He's seen you in front of city council, but he says there's just no proof yet. So they may move forward with granting this variance, but it's totally up to the city of Houston and other officials within there. But he says there is no proof 5G will harm us?
I've sent them studies, dozens of emails. Like you said, I've been to city council half a dozen times over the last year. The videos are all online. I've sent them every interview I've done with the experts. I'm not a scientist myself, but as a journalist, I've contacted the people doing these studies and said, what can you tell me about this? And that information is publicly available. The information is out there if they want to see it, but unfortunately, as he said earlier, some corporations put their profits above, and we have a local council and a mayor who are working with Verizon and Microsoft to push this forward because they want to be the first in the race to 5G. And it's from the local to the national level. We have corruption. What people call big wireless is basically getting in control of government policy and taking away our rights locally.
All right, this is an issue we'll continue to talk about.